What's down, people, and welcome back to another episode of Ghetto Gospel. So where we left off at. Last week, we talked about Abram moving up south. If it sounds weird when I say it like that, you gotta go back and watch the episode. We also talked about livestock and why it was such a big deal for folks back then. The last thing we talked about was God promising to give Abram that piece of land again, which was the third time he said that, which also tell me he was pretty serious about that promise. And you can already see how he's starting to move Abram into place to make it happen. And now we caught up. So the first thing you see in chapter 14 is a story about a bunch of folks you ain't never heard of. And basically, it's just telling you that 4 kings clicked up and went to war against a clique of 4 other kings. And when I say went to war, it wasn't just 4 on 4. It was the kings and all their armies with them. What really mattered here is that the king of Sodom was on the losing side of that battle and ended up getting ruled over by the kings who won. Let's just call him King Cheddar and his clique. So that lasted 12 years. And on the 13th year, they was like, bump that and rebelled. Now King Cheddar and his clique was out here winning battle after battle, knocking off army after army. And these armies wasn't no punks either. And the last order of business was to come back and put down this rebellion. So the king of Sodom and his clique got 5 kingdoms together to fight against King Cheddar and his clique of 4 kingdoms. 5 on 4 ain't matter. They still lost and ended up running away to the mountains. So King Cheddar took all their land, all their stuff, and all their people, including Abram's little nephew and all of his stuff. So somebody survived and ran to tell Abram, bruh, they took your little nephew, Lot. And at the time, Abram was staying out there with his own little clique. And he was like, who took him? And homie who survived was like, King Cheddar and them. And Abram was like, we ride at dawn. And when he said we, he meant him, the 318 trained soldiers who lived up under his roof, and his clique. Now 318 people is a lot of people today, but I bet it was a whole lot of people back then. Like, that's technically enough people to make up a battalion in today's army. And I think that say a whole lot about how rich this man really was. He had his own private security, which, I mean, it really wasn't no police or organized governments back then, at least not like it is today. So I guess you kind of had to have that if you was rich, just to make sure somebody ain't run up in your tent and take all your stuff. So anyway, Abram and his 300 and the rest of his clique, yeah, it was more folks on top of the 300, chased down the folks who took his little nephew, waited till it got dark, and gave them boys the business. He took back all the stuff they stole, plus his nephew Lot. So when he was on his way back, the king of Sodom came out to meet him. And then out of nowhere, you hear about this dude named Melchizedek, who was the king of Salem, bringing out bread and wine for Abram. Now, I done read this piece of the Bible buku times, but now that I'm doing this series and trying to give y'all the play-by-play, I'm realizing I don't know this story as well as I thought I did. First off, when I read it this time, I was thinking that King Melchizedek, we gonna just call him King Mel, must have been from one of them cities that got took over when King Cheddar came through the first time and beat the king of Sodom and his clique. But it don't say that. At the beginning of the chapter, it give you a list of all the kings who was involved in that battle and the cities they ruled. And Salem and King Mel ain't nowhere in that list. The next thing I thought was, oh, King Mel must have came out with the king of Sodom to meet Abram. But it don't say that either. This man literally just show up out of nowhere with bread and bottles. And that ain't even the weirdest part. The next verse say he was a priest of God and started telling Abram how God had blessed him and gave him the W over his enemies. And then Abram turned around and gave that man 10% of everything he had. And I know, y'all got questions. I do too. And all the stuff we really got questions about, as far as I done seen, don't never get fully explained. Like this whole piece about what happened after he won could have got left out. Why we needed to know about the bread and the bottles. Why we need to know this man is a king and a priest. Why we need to know that Abram gave him 10% of all of his stuff. When you read the rest of the Bible, you will see little pieces here and there that throw subs back to this. But I ain't never seen nothing that fully explained this little piece that seemed completely unnecessary. And like I said once before, when you get unnecessary details in the Bible, it's almost always telling you that there's more going on than what you see on the surface. So anyway, I guess the king of Sodom saw this and figured Abram was in a giving mood and said, oh man, you can keep all of that stuff you brought back, just give me the people. And anybody who ever had somebody who was supposed to be their people hold something they did for them over their head, gon' feel this next line that Abram about to say down in their soul. He was like, nah fam, as God is my witness, I ain't gonna take so much as a shoestring from you, so you can't never say you made Abram rich. Ooh-wee, I felt that, boy. Y'all felt that? He was like, I ain't taking nothing but what my folks ate while we was out here saving your people. But I don't speak for my clique. You gonna have to break them boys off. And the story end right there. So where that leave us at? Abram got his little nephew back, and all is well. It's a happy ending, right? And at the same time, I feel like I missed something. I can't quite put my finger on why, and that's a feeling you get familiar with the more time you spend in a book. It's always more to the story. And even when we make it to the end, heck, especially when we make it to the end, you're gonna realize that you missed stuff when you was reading through it. That's just kinda how it works. So that's it for this week. I'll see y'all next week, and as always, peace, and I hope y'all people straight.